The UK's most popular zoo is being built in Plaza Zoo, well, at least some parts of it. Chester Zoo's Heart of Africa is the zoo's latest development and contains a fantastic range of African savannah species. This episode is all about the meerkat, a staple for any African area. Welcome back to the channel everyone, my name is Callum and this is the first look at a new series of mini recreations. We travel to the northwest of England to the famous Chester Zoo, known for being the most visited animal attraction in the UK and an international conservation charity. The Chester Zoo has been planning a Heart of Africa area at the zoo for quite some time. Original plans in 2009 looked at an impressive tropical rainforest dome housing iconic Congo animals such as gorilla and okapi. However, plans for that never surfaced, and instead, years later, an African savannah was revealed as the new plan. Initially planned to start construction in 2020, the Heart of Africa was delayed yet again with the coronavirus pandemic, pushing the opening date back by 2 years. Heart of Africa finally opened in April 2025, just last month. The new African area blends older African habitats into an immersive 22-acre African savanna where over 50 species can be found. According to the zoo, this is the largest and most ambitious zoo expansion to be completed in the UK. The centrepiece is the large mixed savanna habitat where giraffes and other savanna animals can roam together. True to Chester Zoo's conservation efforts, among the 50 species are endangered animals like black rhino and African wild dog. Other animals include the giraffe, zebra, flamingo and aardvark. Interestingly enough, there are no cats featured in the Heart of Africa. No lions, cheetahs or even serval can be found here. However, on the opposite side of the zoo, lions and cheetah are present. Not to get too far ahead of ourselves though, meerkats are the first sight into the Heart of Africa. Meerkats, the iconic, adorable mongoose, is a bit far away from the Heart of Africa. The meerkat is native to southern Africa, particularly the semi-arid or grassland habitats in the Kalahari Desert. However, knowing how well British zoos love the meerkat, it definitely needs a place in an African savannah. The Heart of Africa isn't exactly the most original name anyway. Just after the entrance, zoo guests who travel to the right side of the zoo will enter this entrance area for the Heart of Africa. An attractive mural, which I used 3 of the 4-metre custom media screens, is placed on the side of the indoor meerkat building. This building will house the indoor meerkat habitat, allowing the meerkats to be seen year-round, especially during those cold and damp days. To make an interesting plaza design, this large mulch bed holds a variety of grassland plants with a few African trees and lots of buffalo and bluestem grass to bring the Heart of Africa to life. Currently, as the area is brand new, foliage is rather sparse, with grass needing to grow to enhance the visitor experience. That's pretty normal, however, with new animal exhibits, so I'm trying my best to visualise what an ideal setup could be. Like how Frontier added the mud wall building set as part of the African theme, mud walls and buildings to a larger extent are common themes of the rural African savannah. The use of mud throughout rural Africa is rooted in traditional architecture going back thousands of years. Mud is readily available and requires minimal labour, making it a useful material to use especially in such a hot climate. I don't want to go into the details of mud houses in particular though. It'll be far more interesting in the next episode of this project, as we will see an example of one of those traditional mud and thatch buildings for the zoo's rhino habitat. The meerkat house here uses mud as a facade on the guest side. The rest of the building is primarily made of plaster walls. Like all my North American builds, plaster will continue to be a favourite material for much of the staff and animal buildings throughout the Heart of Africa. Enough about building for now, let's find out about the mob. No, we don't have an angry group of protesters at the entrance. Meerkats live in large groups of up to 40 individuals called a mob. Maybe there's some rivalry going on the south side of the Kalahari Desert. The mob is made out of 3 families living together, where each family is made up of a breeding pair and their offspring. These families often get along together with no issues, especially because the female meerkats seem to be the dominant members of the mob. Meerkats work together in the mob, most notably seen in the purpose of a sentry. One member of the group is tasked to look out for any potential dangers. Where they stand on their hind legs, scanning for danger. These sentries are looking for any predators near the burrows they live in, or even rival meerkats. While meerkats are a very popular zoo animal, there is little threat to these adorable animals as they are abundant throughout their range. However, that's not to say the meerkat gets it easy, it's far from it. Meerkats live a difficult life in the harsh South African deserts. They are constantly threatened by hungry predators such as snakes, jackals and eagles. Drought and burrow flood and rainstorms also put strain on meerkats' home burrows, exposing them to the harsh desert environment. Climate change seems to affect this as hotter and drier summers affect the food supply and birth rates of meerkats. Harsher summers also mean less meerkats survive to maturity, and it has been observed that meerkat pups' growth is negatively affected. This is seen worse in the more arid regions of the meerkat range. It is possible that the desert environment proves too harsh for the meerkat, leading to a higher grassland presence instead. Meanwhile, we can see the meerkat house is taking shape. The roof especially is made out of corrugated metal, seemingly a favourite building material here in the UK. The roof is a lot interesting with the addition of 3 large skylights, providing plenty natural light into the indoor meerkat habitat. Inside, the roof also uses 2D art shapes to hide all the ugly corrugated metal from guest view. Art shapes are built around the skylight to allow the skylight to remain visible, while all the other gaps are filled in with the art shape pieces. Last addition to these skylights are shutters. I don't often see these in zoos I've recreated so far, but realism calls and is a perfect insight into how zoos can manage indoor habitats, especially for burrowing animals like meerkats. Easy enough building all this just for one of the skylights, then duplicating to the remaining 2 skylights. No need to do all that work again for the exact same size and design of the skylight. As with these mini project builds, realistic details are a key feature of these builds compared to say the Houston Zoo, where I purposely avoid some details for the sake of performance. Custom lighting and all the works required for them is to be built in the meerkat interior. 2 of the hanging lamps placed on a wooden panel to replicate a plastic light fitting allows me to create a realistic light feature that can be seen in modern zoos. So far from what I've seen, this is distinctly different from the North American major zoos, at least on the guest side of things. I've built lots of wall-embedded lights for interior builds for say the Houston and Henry Doorly zoos. These lights are then fitted to the roof, with cable pieces between the 3 skylights. 6 of the roof lights to be placed inside, which thankfully is at the perfect height. There have been far too many times where I've made an interior with these cable pieces just end up sticking out the roof, which is unbelievably frustrating when making a recreation. I'm lucky though, it's like millimeters short of sticking out those corrugated metal sheets, especially due to the sloped design of the roof. With these lights in place, the first step of creating a realistic interior is complete. I also need to create rooftop wiring leading to each of the lights and connect them up. A little bit excessive for the average interior build, I'll say, but the end result is always worth the hassle doing this. Well, if the advanced movement group behaves itself, that is. Other nice features for electrical work is adding switches flipped the other way around to connect to the rooftop wiring. More details breaking up the smooth look of the roof is always a nice touch. Elsewhere in the interior, a metal line for the wiring is made up of these vent decals. I did originally plan to do this manually with metal pieces, but this is a rare moment I remembered the decals exist. The line will take the wiring to lead out the back of the building where an electrical box will be placed. What I imagine is an air conditioning box is also built made out of 2D art shapes and another design of vent. This will be for maintaining a steady temperature inside the meerkat habitat, where cold weather would discourage meerkats from exploring the outdoor habitat. When complete, this AC box is then placed on the left side of the meerkat habitat. The left wall is definitely the busiest, with all sorts of metal works connecting to the electrical line. Switches, brackets and metal rods all working together to make some sort of realistic feature, although I'm not too much of an expert in British Zoo's electrical equipment. All I know is that it looks nice and realistic, filling out an otherwise bland, tan-coloured concrete wall. Now for something a tiny bit more exciting. After all that electrical work is finished, the meerkats, 10 of them, are added to the habitat to give me an idea of their traversable space inside. This is going to be a busy indoor space with logs and rocks everywhere, so traversability is likely going to be a challenge. On the right side, this jumble of logs and branches is built. Not exactly too sure what this is supposed to be, maybe some sort of broken tree root or burrow for the meerkats to explore in the real zoo. The meerkat's traverse space isn't actually too bad. It allows me to build a small rock shelter in the corner, which they have no problem accessing. It's not like the tapir, which needs a runway's length to access their indoor space. Some of the small flat desert natural rocks are used as the perfect size and shade of rock required. No full rocks required in this indoor space, as most of them are stupidly big for such a use anyway. A zigzag-like pattern allows for an interesting shelter shape, allowing access to the small shelter from both sides. At the front of the habitat, 2 large rock piles will be built to fill in the gaps. Of course, that pretty much removes all room for the meerkats in these areas, although having an accessible bland patch of sand isn't any better. It's not just going to be logs and rocks inside here though, the interior also makes use of dry, arid plants. The dry bushes are especially useful to fill in the gaps in the rocks and logs, making the interior feel much more lively to create an arid desert theme. The meerkat habitat is now complete. With a nice meerkat indoor habitat, all that's left is a nice outdoor habitat. To build the barrier is simply using the same mud walls we used earlier. Simple and effective, as meerkats aren't exactly master escape artists. The mud wall is placed just above guest head height and is broken up with 2 viewing window sections. A large glass panel looks into 2 sections of the habitat. Now the habitat in real life is really sparse in terms of foliage, apart from the odd small bush or grass tuft. I'm not exactly sure if this is by design for a desert theme or due to its recent age, but I did try a concept of it and it didn't look that nice. I'm sure it's fine in real life, but I can't use a bland, sandy habitat as a video topic, as no one would care. So, I decided to turn this outdoor habitat into a lush grassland to replicate both of the meerkat habitats. Inside the meerkat house, there's the arid environment of the Kalahari Desert, while outside there's the more semi-arid savannah, which meerkats also inhabit. At the back of the habitat, we can find a pair of viewing domes on a slightly raised bit of terrain. This introduces an alternative viewing area to the meerkats, as the viewing domes are especially a favourite for children. Chester Zoo has also ensured the viewing dome access is suitable for adults, with the tunnel for the viewing dome being rather large. It goes around in a loop, linking both viewing domes with a dedicated entrance and exit to prevent any wayfinding mishaps. In this build, only a portion of the viewing dome entrance tunnel is built for obvious reasons. The terrain and solid dome bottom doesn't allow me to create a realistic viewing tunnel, saving me the hassle of doing that. Of course, no functioning entrance for the dome is placed, as it is way too big for a realistic build, and I'm not having guests in the zoo anyway. This tunnel is made out of these 2D art-shaped arches, which are pretty big, but any other alternatives are even larger, which I need to ensure this tunnel remains out of sight. Finishing off the dome tunnel is a wooden slat border and a sign for the entrance or exit. Moving on to the other barriers, the habitat. The rear habitat gets a natural mud-like rock wall, coloured roughly the same shade as the mud walls used. These are of course a workshop custom rock wall, as I refuse to make my own. I still can't work with the Twilight Cave pieces, so creators like Zoov saved my zoos again. The rocks work well to hide the dome tunnel area with all the broken terrain, and also make up the rear habitat wall. All three types of rock wall are used to create a natural looking wall. The rather low piece count of about 20 to 50 pieces is also refreshing compared to the huge 500 piece walls used in the Houston Pantanal. For foliage, blackthorn bushes are used primarily as the large plants. I believe Chester has some kind of small blackthorn bush growing in their habitat, although I only get the choice of big, bigger, and a tree. Along with the various bushes, lots of different grasses is to be planted in the habitat. Drin, buffalo, and dry variants of both grasses will create an immersive semi-arid grassland for what meerkats can be found in. This might make meerkat spotting a tiny bit more difficult, but seeing meerkats amongst natural grasses is a more rewarding experience than roaming just a barren, sandy pit. Starting a tour of the habitat with nothing else to see is a bit awkward, but let's jump into it. The entrance to Heart of Africa is easily seen with the Meerkat house, with its large grassland themed planter. An attractive mural with a savannah theme welcomes guests to the Heart of Africa. On the other side, a modern small building houses the indoor meerkat habitat, which is modelled on an arid desert theme with lots of sand, rocks, and dry, arid foliage. The interior is full of realistic details, such as lighting, electrical wiring, and 3 large skylights. Guests see all this through a large viewing window. On a mud wall to the right, an educational sign about meerkats can be seen, especially the interesting use of meerkat features, showing what special adaptations the meerkats have. The outdoor habitat is a lush grassland, offering many areas for the meerkats to travel around, creating a semi-arid grassland experience that we can come to expect in the Heart of Africa. 2 viewing windows offer views into outdoor habitat. Both in key locations, the meerkats interact with enrichment, such as the log and artificial termite mound. Everything is connected in the African grassland, as we will come to find out in later episodes. Meerkats may be small, but that's not the smallest connection we will learn about. Lastly, we can visit the pair of viewing domes, a close-up encounter to see meerkats at eye level. The domes are accessed by a crawl-through tunnel at the back of the habitat. That's the tour of the meerkats at Chester's Heart of Africa, an exciting start to an amazing grassland experience. Thanks for watching everyone, and see you next time.